Okay, so this video is just a quick walkthrough through your course schedule for spring 2026 for our Health IT Policy Administration course. Okay, so first thing you're going to see in your week one here is, so I'm giving you, we're giving ourselves a week to just get acclimated to the course. So there's lots of orientation content to read. This is particularly important if this is your first semester here. It's really important that you go through all of that stuff. There's course content information. I'm sorry, there's course orientation information, but there's also, as you'll see in the learning modules in the Start Here menu, there's also program and university orientation information that you maybe you've already had, but particularly in this course where many of you, this is your first semester here, this is one of your first courses. I want to make sure that you have all of that information available to you, including broader resources beyond just the course for your time here at UMBC. So it's really important to me that to create a space where you have a digital space where you have a single point of access to all that content. So please make sure you go through all of that. And that's why we give ourselves a week to get acclimated. Okay. You're going to see knowledge checks. Those knowledge checks are going to be about syllabus content. So, an assignment, including assignment instructions. So the knowledge checks are not on lecture material. They're on aspects of the syllabus, such as assignment instructions, the use of AI policy, things that are really important that you make sure you have encoded, as you read them, that you've absorbed them and make sure your class experience a lot more enjoyable, a lot less stressful if you feel like you've got a good solid handle on the directions, the assignments, and grading, and like I said, the use of AI. So that's why we have the knowledge checks there, and why I give us a week to get acclimated to the course before we start lecture material. Okay, so you'll also have an introduction post in there in that first week. You'll see the separate module for that and the instructions. It's easy points meant to, again, especially for the many of you who are new to the program and maybe even the university, as well as, taking a new course. It's a great opportunity for us to have digital introductions and get to know each other. Um, so please, make sure you do that. And so you'll have a week to get to do all that stuff, and you want to have all the knowledge checks and the introduction post done by February 1st, okay, which will be the end of our first week. Okay, so then from there we'll get into lecture content in week two, and then in week three you'll have your section on fundamentals of U.S. policy, and your topic proposal draft for your paper will be due at the end of that week as well. And so that will begin the iterative process of working on our primary assignment in the course, which is your policy analysis paper. Okay. And again, that's why it's really important to read through all the instructional content up front at the beginning of the semester. So you have a feel for it going into it. So what will happen in week four is I will be working on your feedback. I will have it to you by the end of that week four, but I try to do that. I try to make as best I can to get that feedback to you earlier in the week than later. Just depends on what else is going on. But I do strive to get that feedback to you as soon as possible, earlier in the week as much as possible, so that you have the maximum amount of time to take the feedback and make revisions to your top proposal document over the course of week four and week five. And then at the end of week five, you'll turn in that final document. Okay, and then so from there, you'll be able to start working on your paper and getting ready for the next iteration, which is the draft submission. And so you'll see in here we'll have some quizzes. The one thing I wanted to call out to you on March 13th, note that that is a Friday. The reason why that's a Friday instead of the usual Sunday end of day is that the next day will be the beginning of our spring break. And so what I try to do with spring break is build in terms of course structure, a level of flexibility where um, if you wish to actually take that break and not work on your course, that you can do that. Like, so I don't have things due that are due into the spring break intentionally. So now for many of you, this may be an opportunity to get caught up, to get sort of make some good progress on your draft paper so it doesn't feel stressful and crammed to you, which of course I encourage because it creates a better experience for yourself. But if you feel like you want or need to take that break, you have that break to take. You won't have things due during spring break. But note that that Friday is there for that reason so that you don't miss that deadline for the quiz. Okay, so we'll have our spring break. You'll still have a couple more weeks after coming off of spring break to work on your draft. And so your draft will be due at the end of week 9 um, and on April 5th. All right. So just like with the topic proposal document assignment, I will be, working on those papers immediately. That's a little bit longer of a turnaround time in terms because obviously you're going to be submitting, your draft paper is going to have a lot more content to it than your proposal document. And I do make sure I read each one of your drafts carefully so I can give you detailed feedback. So it might take, that more often takes most of the week to get back to you. But that's also why we build in, you see that there's a good amount of space in between terms of time. There's almost a month in between, really actually closer to 6 weeks, in between when you submit your draft and when your finals due. So that gives you lots of time to get my feedback, to ask questions of myself or our teaching assistant about feedback and work on revisions so that by the time you get to you're finalizing your paper, and you'll hear this from me in the assignment instructions. I want submitting the final paper to be the easiest part. What I mean by the easiest part is that we've been through multiple iterations of feedback, starting in the proposal and then in the draft, and you have opportunity to ask questions in between the draft. We've got almost 6 weeks there for you to ask questions about feedback, and so that when you are turning in that final paper, here's the goal, and it's a repeat from what's in the assignment instructions. The goal is that when once you submit your final paper, that the only feedback that you're going to get from me or your teaching assistant is, "Hey, what a great job! Your final paper looks great. Good job going through all the feedback and making sure you've incorporated all the feedback." So that you submit that paper on May 10th, and you're done. Watch for my feedback, obviously, um, and so I will still leave feedback if needed, so that you have that additional learning, and there'll be about 10 days, or exactly 10 days actually, between when that paper is due and the actual end of the semester on May 20th. So if you are making up assignments for partial credit, that'll be our hard deadline on May 20th because his grades will be due soon after that. Okay, so that's your walkthrough for your course and assignment schedule for spring 26.